Today we have a 2010 Mazda 2. It's fitted with the 1.5 petrol engine and it's got roughly 74,000 miles on the clock. The Mazda's in today because it's had an MOT and it's failed on several items, one of them being the lower suspension arm. So we'll crack on and change that today. So before your customer leaves, it's a good idea to find out where to find this, the locking wheel nut key. People tend to keep them in all different places, can spend a long time trying to find the thing. So before I take the car up in the air, or before you jack it up, it's a good idea just to crack the wheel nuts loose. That one was tight. That's it. We'll take it up in the air next. So we'll just go ahead and get this wheel off now. We're going to be replacing this lower suspension arm today. The rearmost bush in the arm is quite badly worn and there's a bit of free play in it. So we'll crack on and hopefully show you how to go about changing the arm. You possibly can get the bush separately, but you will need a press and the relevant tools for pushing a bush in and out. The suspension arm, depending on what brand you go for, it's the same as anything. The price probably ranges from about £50 up to 150, I would guess, for a genuine part. So I'm just going for a good quality brand aftermarket parts. We're going to start by undoing this 14mm and attempting to release the bottom ball joint from the knuckle. Right, I gave this a bit of a spray up with some WD-40 as soon as the car came in, just to let it soak a little bit actually. A bit of corrosion on the thread there. So that's a nut this side, a nut and a bolt, which we need to try and release. 14mm. I expect the bolt's going to be a bit seized in there, so the 14mm this side, the head size of the bolt. I can't really see what I'm doing. I just want to see if I can free it up a bit. Put a bit more spray on that, I think. So I'm not undoing it, I'm just loosening it. We've already got the nut off, so it is just turning in the knuckle now. do, I'll put the nut back on there loosely so I don't damage the thread. Give that a tap. Bit awkward to get on. Just got a drift there. I think that's loosened it. Always a good idea to put the nut back on just in case you catch the thread and burr it over. That prevents that. That's it. One pinch bolts. Right, so we need to try and get this ball joint out now, and as you can imagine, that's going to be quite tight in there and seized. I'll turn that steering round a bit. And you can see the little gap there, which when you put the pinch bolt in, it squeezes it together. So I'm just going to try and open that up a little bit. I've got an old pry bar somewhere which should fit in there. If I can remember where I put it. No, this one should do. Ah, there it is. So what I'm going to try and do is lever this down now. Hopefully it'll go. It's moved a little bit. Yeah, you can see it's come down a little bit. There's a little bit of a gap just there. I shall get my ball joint splitter and have a go at it with that. You can persevere with a bar and open this up a bit. Keep tapping it and it will eventually come out. But I'm going to try and do it an easier way. So this thing, it's ball joint splitter. They're relatively cheap to buy. It's not the kind of thing you use every day. Just a handy thing to have in your kit. And as you can see, I've got that stuck now. But it is going. And I should have said, clearly that's going to destroy the rubber boot, but we're changing the whole arm anyway. So if you're intending on reusing the arm and just replacing the bush, you'd have to persevere with a big bar and keep on going at it. I think I'm going to see if I can open that up just a little bit more. At last. See the amount of corrosion on that ball joint. Hopefully the other two fixings won't be so difficult to get out. You've got a bolt there and a bolt here, both 17mm. So yeah, both of them are 17mm. Quite a lot of corrosion in there. Oh, that's it. As you can see, that it's quite loose in there. So that just allowed the arm to jiggle about a bit. You can actually push that out. So as I was saying, you could probably get a replacement bush, but you're going to need the proper cups to support it, another tool to fit snugly in there to push the thing out on a press. And the time you've done that, the actual complete arm doesn't cost that much more when you weigh up the amount of time you're going to spend fiddling around with the bush. So here's our new parts. You can see this looks a lot more substantial, whether that's been modified. But anyway, we'll have a go at fitting this back in. It comes with just a plastic cover over there to stop you from accidentally damaging that rubber boot while you're fitting it. Grab my hammer and give that a little tap. Seems very tight in there. Have a look at this against the old one. Yeah, I mean, it looks the same. Bush is slightly different, but looks basically the same. That's got to go in first, because if you can't put that in first, or this. There's my torch. That's a very snug fit. Little bird on there. That's so close. Put the hammer. Nope, don't want to go. So after a lot of fiddling around, I put the steering on the other lock and had the arm around this way at a different angle. You just got to really fiddle around with the different angles, and found that the rubber bush, because it was too much at an angle, straightened it up a bit with a screwdriver, tapped the arm, and in it went. So I've just lined it up now with this bolt hole at the back. I'm going to try and loosely put this bolt back in. I will put a bit of copper grease on there. Right, that's started. Let's see if we can get this in now. Where did I put that hammer? So I'm using a copper hide hammer, a very old one. So that's very soft, that end. Shouldn't damage anything with it. The other bolt, I'll put a bit of copper grease on that as well. And that's that started. And finally, I need to try and get that bottom ball joint back in. I'll straighten up the steering. And you can see why it's got that plastic cover on it now to protect the boot. That can come off. Now it's important not to hit this grease cap on the bottom here. You can squash it up and pinch the ball joint. I've only seen that happen once before. Somebody jacked it up on there, squashed the ball joint, and the steering went really tight because the ball joint couldn't twist. So on that shaft going in, you can see it's got like a little recess there, which needs to line up with the bolt hole. So once this bit is in line with the bolt hole, you can put the bolt through, and it can't go up and down any further. And if it's not lined up, the bolt won't go through. So again, a bit more copper slip on this. So if it has to come out in future, hopefully it will come out a little bit easier. And you can actually, let's put that in, you can actually see the top of the ball joint, that shaft there, poking through the top. Right, we'll go ahead and do up all those fixings. So I'll start with the two 17mm head size bolts. And the 14. I will double check those by hand. That's it, they're nice and tight. All fixings on the car, they will have a tightening torque, and you might be able to find them somewhere online. But as long as you're, sensible about it, and make sure you double check by hand. I always like to do that just for peace of mind, although it's pretty obvious the air gun's going to do it up tight. Okay, so that's back in place. Just touching on the ramp. Right, it's important not to overdo it with an air gun with a locking wheel nut key, because you can fracture it and break it quite easily. Okay, so we'll drop the ramp down next and check the tightness of the wheel nuts on the floor. Right, the job's done. Today we've done a couple of jobs on the steering, the front suspension. It's always recommendable to check the front wheel alignment, the tracking, if ever you have any of it apart, and rebuild it. Not necessarily so much if you're reusing the old parts, but if, like we've done, fitted a couple of new components, it's worth checking just to make sure it's all still as it should be. Clearly not everybody's got tracking gauges. Fortunately I've got some, so I'm going to go ahead and settle the suspension, because the car's been up in the air, put the gauges on and check and adjust where necessary. Obviously you could run it down to your local tyre centre. They'll probably charge about £20–25 to check it for you.